The town of Eastwood is nestled in the heart of the wilderness. I live here with my family, my wife and little daughter, in a small house. I, Hunter Harry, am a man known for his ability to navigate this untouched wilderness. My friend David, a city dweller, traveled to this remote corner of the world to visit me. It was a crisp autumn morning when David and I set out on our hunting trip, the sun casting long shadows through the dense trees. The forest loomed, its silence broken only by the rustling of leaves and the distant calls of unseen creatures. As we ventured deeper into the woods, the looming canopy of trees began to obscure the sky, and the forest floor was carpeted with a quilt of fallen leaves, each one crackling beneath our boots. Our camaraderie had always been a curious one. I was a man of the wild, at home in the heart of this wilderness, while David, a denizen of the city, was as out of place as a fish on a bicycle in this untamed world. But our friendship thrived on these differences. David, with his city-bred fascination, had an uncanny ability to see beauty in the wild, to find magic in places I often overlooked. As the day wore on and the forest grew thicker, our senses became heightened. The tang of pine needles filled the air, and the quiet whispers of the breeze seemed to carry secrets of the woods. It was then that we stumbled upon an unexpected find, a wolf cub, its fur the color of freshly fallen snow, and its eyes a piercing, unnatural shade of blue. My instincts screamed for me to end its existence, for there was something profoundly eerie about those eyes. But David, with his fascination in his eyes, pleaded with me to spare the creature. He knelt beside the wolf cub, his hand outstretched, and with a gentleness that surprised even me, he scooped the small animal into his arms. "Harry, look at this magnificent creature," David said, his voice filled with wonder. "We can't leave it here to fend for itself. Let's take it home, and I promise to find it a safe haven." I hesitated, my hunter's instincts warning me that there was something uncanny about the cub's presence in these woods, but I couldn't resist the earnest look in David's eyes. In the end, I relented. Back in my humble abode, David asked for the cub, promising to take it to a zoo when he returned to the city. His insistence and my trust in him led me to agree, and the cub became his responsibility. That night, as I lay in my bed, a vivid nightmare clawed its way into my consciousness. I found myself standing in the heart of the forest, surrounded by towering trees that seemed to stretch endlessly into the sky. The moon above cast an eerie silver light on the ground, revealing shadows that danced and swirled like phantoms. I was not alone. A looming black shadow pursued me through the trees, a malevolent force that seemed to draw strength from the very depths of the forest. My heart pounded in my chest as I tried to escape, but the relentless presence of the shadow was inescapable. With a start, I awoke, drenched in a cold sweat, the echoes of the nightmare still fresh in my mind. I struggled to catch my breath, my senses on high alert. The room was cloaked in darkness, and the silence of the night seemed oppressive. Thirst gnawed at my throat, and I swung my legs over the side of the bed. As I made my way to the small kitchenette, the floorboards groaned beneath my weight, adding an eerie soundtrack to the night. I filled a glass with water, the cool liquid soothing my parched throat. As I took a sip, the night outside came alive with the distant, mournful howl of a wolf. The sound sent shivers down my spine, and I froze, the glass still in my hand. The howling continued, growing closer, as if beckoning me into the depths of the forest. The howling stopped after about an hour. I still couldn't sleep. The next day, David left, taking the wolf cub with him. As the sinister undercurrents of our once peaceful town continued to swell, darkness seeped into every corner of Eastwood. Children, the heartbeat of our community, began to vanish with alarming regularity. It was as though a malevolent force had descended upon us, snatching the innocent one by one. The ominous sequence of events began with a young girl named Sarah, a bright-eyed child who had been walking home from school one crisp afternoon. Her disappearance sent shockwaves through our close-knit community. Then, as the town grappled with the unexplained loss of Sarah, the unsettling pattern repeated itself. A young boy, Tommy, who had been playing near the edge of the woods, went missing without a trace. Panic swelled. It was as if an ancient curse had descended upon Eastwood, with the heartache of one stolen child following swiftly upon another. The breaking point came when Emma, a sweet child who had been swinging in her backyard, vanished into thin air. Her laughter, which had once filled the air like music, was silenced, replaced by the mournful cries of her anguished parents. Fear gripped our town, and a sense of despair settled over us like a shroud. I couldn't shake off the ominous premonitions that clouded my thoughts. Each evening, I returned home with a heavy heart, determined to protect my own family from the lurking menace. I warned my wife, Margaret, and our daughter Lily, never to roam alone in our once quiet town. Desperation crept in like the biting winds of winter. The town's people began to turn on each other, seeking someone or something to blame for our collective suffering. It was then that I received a call from Sean, a policeman I had known for years. His voice, tinged with desperation, broke through the eerie silence of our home. "Harry," he said, "we need your help. We believe the abductor is lurking in the woods, and we need all the assistance we can get." I hesitated, the weight of responsibility pressing down on me. Sean and I had grown up together, and he was a man I trusted. If there was any chance of unraveling the mysteries that gripped our town, I couldn't turn my back on it. With a heavy heart, I agreed to join Sean and the police in their search for the missing children. The forest, thick with ancient trees and gnarled branches, seemed to harbor secrets of its own. The quiet rustling of leaves, the whisper of the wind, and the distant calls of unseen creatures combined to create an eerie symphony that sent shivers down my spine. Our search yielded meager results, with only the discovery of a single item, the tattered pants of one of the missing children, left carelessly abandoned among the roots of a gnarled oak tree. The find offered no clues, only a stark reminder of the disturbing presence that had invaded our peaceful town. Hours turned to days, and we pressed on, our determination unwavering. We scoured the forest, but our quest yielded no answers, only more questions. The town's people, their anguish and fear palpable, watched our efforts with desperation in their eyes. The evenings in Eastwood had taken on an eerie pallor, their shadows stretching into the recesses of our souls. The vanishing children, an unrelenting dread, remained the focus of our town's collective nightmares. One such evening, as I returned home, a strange and unsettling presence caught my eye. A figure, unmistakably female, stood shrouded in darkness just beyond the threshold of my house. I called out to her, but she offered no response. Instead, she swiftly retreated into the obscurity of the night, her form dissipating like a wisp of smoke. I stood there for a moment, the weight of her presence lingering in the air, a disconcerting sensation that crawled across my skin. Who was she, and what had drawn her to my home? That night, as I retired to bed, a gnawing unease settled upon me, and I found myself unable to shake the memory of the mysterious woman. It was in the midst of this spectral ambiance that I spotted it, a shadow moving stealthily around my home. Fear took hold, and the primitive instinct for self-preservation surged within me. I armed myself with a shotgun, and with cautious steps, ventured outside. I searched, my heart pounding, but the shadow proved elusive. It seemed to taunt me, slipping away into the inky blackness with each step I took. With my senses on high alert, I combed the perimeter of my home, finding nothing but the oppressive silence of the night. Doubt gnawed at the edges of my consciousness. Had I been imagining things? As I returned to my home, the unease in my heart remained. I couldn't dismiss the feeling that I was being watched, monitored by some malevolent presence. The following morning, I ventured into the yard, determined to unravel the mystery of the straying figure and the lurking shadow. What I discovered sent a chill coursing through my veins. The ground was marred with a multitude of footprints, large predator tracks that could only belong to a wolf or a she-wolf. A shiver raced down my spine as the chilling thought took hold. Could this be the mother of the cub I had entrusted to David? With the weight of the she-wolf's presence and the disappearances of the children pressing upon me, I felt an urgency to connect the dots between these sinister events. The phone call I made to David was filled with a restless excitement that mirrored the turmoil in my soul. "David," I began, my voice laced with anxiety. "What happened to the wolf cub? I need to know." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and I could sense the reluctance in his response. "Harry, I'm sorry, but the cub, it didn't make it. It refused to eat, and no matter what we tried, we couldn't save it. It died of exhaustion. The news hit me like a physical blow, but I had to find a way out of the situation. Desperation propelled me to ask for David's help, a request that would turn his life upside down. I approached him with a plea that I hoped would ensure the safety of my family. "David," I implored, "I need you to do something for me. I need you to take Margaret and Lily into your home, at least temporarily. I can't shake the feeling that our home is no longer safe." David was surprised by my request, but realizing the seriousness of the situation, he agreed to take my family in. As I delivered the news to Margaret that evening, I could see the puzzlement in her eyes, but she recognized the urgency in my voice. It was a heavy decision to make, and her reluctance was palpable. We knew we had to act swiftly to protect Lily and ensure their safety. While Margaret and our daughter prepared to leave for David's home, I decided to occupy my restless mind with work, hoping to distract myself from the disquiet that threatened to consume me. With a list of essentials for Margaret and Lily's stay, I made my way to the town's grocery store. It was a mundane task, but in those times, even the simplest errands took on a surreal quality. As I navigated the narrow aisles, gathering provisions for my family, a disquieting sensation crept over me. The air seemed to thicken, and the unmistakable feeling of being watched settled upon me like a shroud. Intriguingly, I turned around, searching for the source of my unease, and there she was, an enigmatic woman with an air of mystery that transcended the ordinary. Her eyes, vibrant and arresting, locked onto mine, and I found myself captivated by her ethereal beauty. With a voice that trembled ever so slightly, I approached her, my curiosity and apprehension mingling in my words. "Is there something you need assistance with?" The woman responded with a gentle, enigmatic smile, her lips curving in a manner that seemed to hint at a world of mysteries. "I'm sorry," she replied, her voice a soothing melody. "I mistook you for someone else. My apologies." With graceful steps, she turned and left, her presence fading away like a wisp of mist. I watched her departure, a sense of fascination and unanswered questions lingering in her wake. My determination to protect my family had led me to the police station on my way home. There, amidst the ceaseless activity of officers and the tangible tension of the ongoing investigation, I found Sean, the one person who had been with me on this tumultuous journey. "Harry," he greeted me, his face etched with the exhaustion of relentless nights spent in pursuit of answers. "What brings you here today?" I began to recount the events that had woven themselves into the fabric of my life, the wolf tracks in the yard, the she-wolf, and the wolf cub I had entrusted to David. Sean listened attentively, his expression a canvas of concern as he digested the peculiar pieces of the puzzle I presented. "These events are certainly strange and disturbing," he admitted, "but we must be cautious. If you want to go to the forest to get the wolf, be careful. There may still be the maniac who kidnapped Harry's children." The journey back home from the police station had been marked by an eerie silence. Sean's cautionary words echoed in my thoughts, casting a pall over the once familiar surroundings. As I approached the cabin, the creeping feeling of dread intensified. The anticipation of reuniting with my family propelled me. However, what awaited me inside was a tableau of chaos and horror. The door stood ajar, and my heart raced as I entered, my eyes falling upon a scene of desolation. Furniture was overturned, shattered glass littered the floor, and bloodstains told a gruesome tale of violence. My wife, Margaret, lay unconscious in the backyard, a ghastly figure marred by claw marks and bruises. Blood painted her skin, and her trembling hands clutched a shotgun. Scattered shell casings and bloody footprints led a macabre trail from our home to the forest's edge. Terror gripped me, threatening to choke the very life out of me as I realized the depth of the horror that had befallen my family. My mind raced, and my voice, tinged with hysteria, called out for our daughter, Lily. The silence that followed was chilling, save for the rustling leaves outside, as if the forest itself held its breath in anticipation. Panic coursed through my veins, and I knew I couldn't waste a moment. Lily was out there somewhere, alone and in danger. But I knew I had to get my wife to the hospital quickly. Her condition was critical, and I couldn't risk delaying her treatment. As she lay unconscious in the car, I made a frantic call to Sean, desperately pleading for his help. Leaving Margaret in the care of the hospital staff, I rushed to the police station, where Cian had already assembled a team of determined officers. The urgency of the situation was palpable, and their unwavering dedication filled me with a sense of hope and determination. Armed with a renewed resolve, we ventured into the woods once more. This time, we had a crucial lead, a trail of bloody footprints that led away from my ravaged home. The sinister enigma that had gripped our town was beginning to unravel, and I was determined this time to search not for a man, not for a maniac, but to follow the tracks of the she-wolf, praying that they would lead us to my missing daughter, Lily. The forest loomed before us, its depths shrouded in darkness. Every rustle of leaves, every distant howl, seemed to conspire to send chills down our spines. The moon cast eerie shadows that danced among the trees, and we pressed forward, determined to unveil the secrets hidden within. Our footsteps were heavy with trepidation as we delved deeper into the heart of the forest. The night seemed to stretch endlessly, each were a test of our resolve. Despair threatened to engulf us, but we pressed on, driven by the belief that we were drawing closer to the truth. Just as the first pale light of dawn began to pierce the thick canopy above, we stumbled upon a telltale sign, the tracks of the she-wolf. My heart pounded with a mixture of relief and dread as we followed the prints etched in the forest floor. The trail of prints led us deeper into the wilderness, their precision a testament to the creature's cunning and knowledge of these woods. Our journey brought us to a hidden clearing, where the tracks culminated in a large burrow cunningly concealed behind leaves and bushes. The stench that emanated from it was nauseating, a putrid mixture of decay and malevolence that seemed to cling to the very air we breathed. Fear hung like a shroud as we approached the burrow. It was a grotesque portal into the unknown, an entryway into the heart of the darkness that had enveloped our town. The police officers exchanged apprehensive glances, their eyes reflecting the same mixture of dread and determination that swirled within me. With trembling hands, we inched closer to the burrow, our flashlights revealing its vile interior. It was a nightmare brought to life, a foul, subterranean chamber where the very essence of evil seemed to reside. As we ventured deeper into the burrow, the darkness swallowed us, and the stench grew more unbearable with each step. The passage continued to twist and turn, leading us into a labyrinth of horror that defied comprehension. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the sound of our footsteps and the distant drip of water. The walls seemed to close in, and the sense of being trapped in a malevolent web grew ever more palpable. And then, just as hope seemed to wane, our flashlights revealed a chamber at the end of the labyrinth, a chamber that held a sight that would forever haunt my nightmares. In the dim light, we beheld a chilling tableau, a group of frightened and hungry children huddled together, their eyes wide with terror. These were the missing children, the innocent souls who had vanished without a trace, and their presence in this wretched place sent a shiver down our spines. I stumbled upon my daughter, Lily, her tiny form trembling with a mixture of relief and fear. She clung to me, her eyes brimming with tears, and I held her close, overwhelmed with a surge of protective instinct. The burrow, however, held something even more horrifying. In the dim recesses of the chamber, our flashlights revealed a gruesome truth: the remains of children, human bones discarded like forgotten toys. Shock and revulsion coursed through me as I struggled to process the nightmare that lay before us. The police officers shared in my horror, their expressions a mirror of my own dread. We had unearthed a malevolent truth, a sinister reality that transcended the bounds of human comprehension. This chamber was a graveyard of innocence, a place where the she-wolf had carried out unspeakable acts. The children who had survived clung to us, their fragile forms a stark contrast to the horrors that surrounded them. They had been subjected to unimaginable terror, and their eyes told stories of suffering that words could never adequately convey. As we guided the traumatized children out of the burrow and into the forest, I couldn't help but wonder about the she-wolf, the creature responsible for these heinous acts. What had driven it to such unspeakable depths of depravity? Is it my fault? Why did I agree to give the wolf cub to David? As I held my daughter close, her fragile form trembling in my arms, the grim reality of our nightmarish ordeal began to settle in. I pondered the fate of the she-wolf, the creature responsible for the unspeakable horrors that had unfolded in the woods. Where had it gone? Amidst the chaos of our thoughts and emotions, one of the police officers called out to us. His complexion had paled, and his eyes bore the traces of a profound fear that seemed to emanate from the depths of the forest. We followed him, our hearts heavy with trepidation, and as we did, we were confronted with a sight that sent a chill down our spines. There, beneath a gnarled and ancient tree, lay the lifeless form of a woman, her body shrouded in a gruesome tableau of blood and death. Her chest bore the unmistakable marks of a bullet wound, a wound that had silenced her in the throes of agony. My gaze locked onto her lifeless face, and my heart constricted with recognition. It was the same woman I had encountered in the store, her face now contorted in a terrible, agonizing grimace. Her life had been cruelly extinguished in this dark forest, leaving behind only a haunting memory of her presence. Yet it was not her lifeless visage that filled me with a profound sense of dread. It was her eyes. Those eyes, once bright and piercing, were now glazed over in death, and their piercing blue color sent shivers down my spine. They were the same shade of blue as the wolf cub's eyes, the very cub that had become an unwitting harbinger of terror in our lives. The threads of our terrifying journey began to weave themselves into a web of horror, and I couldn't help but wonder why I hadn't noticed the peculiar color of her eyes before.